I'll introduce Jen Baltz. Jen Baltz is a lead user experience designer and researcher who is here and eager to start her speech. So I'm going to leave. Thank you.
Right.
Give it up for Jen.
Thank you. Thank you. Woo! Okay, Casey's going to be a really tough act to follow, so I'm not going to have that kind of energy, but bear with me. We'll make it through. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'm here to talk about user experience research and service design and how that can save enterprise software, or sometimes known as B2B, business-to-business software. So I have a lot to cover. I'm going to jump right in. Really quickly about me, gave me an intro. I'm a UX researcher and designer. And I'm also one of the co-founders of a large international meetup group called UX Research and Strategy. And you can connect with me or that group on LinkedIn. Also, I have a warning. I have a lot of dogs in my presentation today, so I hope you like doggos. All right, so let's start with the basics. What is enterprise software? And no, it's not this spaceship for all you Star Trek fans out there. Enterprise software is used to satisfy the needs of an organization or a company rather than an individual's needs. So, like I said, sometimes it's called like business-to-business software. And what makes enterprise systems interesting is they're not really super sexy most of the time, and they're not really delightful to work in for the most part. They're there to help you get a job done, and people tend to be in them for very long periods of time. And think about somebody who's using like a content management system, and they're going to be in that all day. And sometimes it's a little dated and old, and that can be because it's tied to legacy systems. So the tough part, I think, about enterprise software is the person who is using it usually doesn't have any say in the purchase of that. It's usually somebody in procurement or technology. Again, they're using that software to satisfy company needs, not like their own. So they don't have a say a lot of times in this enterprise software. And like I said, it just doesn't get a lot of UX love sometimes because there just doesn't need to be in some sense, right? So they need these solutions, these companies need these solutions, and the great user experience that we're all here to create just often doesn't fall in the world of enterprise software. So some examples you might be familiar with is Jira, Salesforce, ServiceNow. I'd even consider Microsoft stuff, enterprise software. And they do a lot of things, manage payroll and medical records and data management and inventory management. So they do a lot of different things. And so now we kind of know what it is, level set, we understand what it is. I'm going to show you some of the enterprise software that I was working on. I'm going to warn you, this might hurt your eyes, because this is not pretty stuff. Told you, not pretty. So this was the enterprise software I was working on as a designer and a researcher at a security company. Isn't this lovely? Looks like it was made in, 1993? Really, really good stuff. Here's another screen that these security operation analysts worked on every day. So what they did was they monitored another company's internet traffic, and if something came up, something bad in their environment, they created a ticket for them, an incident ticket. And so see these gray boxes up here on the left, these buttons? Well, through my research, I learned that half of them aren't even usable. And then the half that were usable were not usable in the screen itself, like maybe at another phase of this. Anybody ever see this where, they just leave stuff in because it's already built in? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've seen this. Don't bother to take it out. Okay, woo. All right, so that's the last time I'm going to scare you with that enterprise software. Just wanted you to kind of know, hey, this was what I was working on. And I haven't worked at that company for a few years, but I reached out to one of the analysts a few weeks ago They're still working on that. They've not updated it at all. Hence why I left. No. So that brings us to the other half of this talk, which is service design. And anybody here familiar with service design or practicing it, doing it at your company? Anybody know what service design is? Yeah? I think I see some hands out there. Yeah, well, for those who might be a little bit new to the idea, services design is a way of organizing resources, people, and processes in order to improve the employee's experience, and then indirectly, you improve the customer's experience. And so, to me, it's kind of like taking a deep look at like a customer's journey and examining that through different steps and determining how we might improve that experience. So, I want to take a second to look at the similarities between service design and enterprise software. Like I just stated, service design is a way of organizing processes for a business, helping the employee, and then that will indirectly help the customer. Well, enterprise software also has that kind of secondary relationship, right? So they're not necessarily helping the customer or the user because the user didn't have the say in purchasing the enterprise software in the first place. There's that. And the user is working in the software to aid and help the company. So this is a service design blueprint. Has anybody ever seen this? This was created by Adaptive Path, and the gold, or the old, goldish boxes across the top are the steps in the customer's journey. So that's the touch points, the customer's actions. And then the other swim lanes are other things that you examine at every touch point. And then you go deep into every touch point. I'll go into this a little bit later on, a little bit further, but I just wanted you to be familiar with this idea of a service design blueprint. So let's talk about the problem that I was trying to solve. And again, this is for a security operations center. We call it the SOC, S-O-C, and they monitor another company's traffic. So let's say it's Starbucks. We are monitoring Starbucks traffic, their internet traffic, make sure there's not malware or viruses or someone downloading a BitTorrent in their system. And so we would monitor the traffic. And along with that service, we offered a monthly or quarterly report. And that report was pretty much basically like a Word document that we would put together and then save it as a PDF and send it over to them. So that was what the company wanted us to do. This was the ask, the business ask, was to automate building the reports. So that's what I was tasked to do. How can we automate this? Why do we want to automate this? Well, this report took nearly 2 hours for one person to build. And that doesn't scale. When you have one person building these by hand, basically, that's not going to scale. So it was a lot using resources that not to the best of the ability, right? And based on the interviews that I conducted with users or people who look at these reports, they don't provide what the client really wants or what they really need. And the presentation, like the visual design, was kind of all over the place. So it's not really visually consistent. And I asked myself, well, what could I do to make this report better? And that's when I decided that I was going to conduct user experience research and service design to kind of help figure out what I could do to improve this report building process and improve this report. So the first thing I did was come up with my plan of attack, or this was my research plan. And I wanted to conduct a heuristic evaluation. Anybody familiar with a heuristic evaluation? You can do them on non-interface things as well. Like, you can do them on analog items too. And so I wanted to kind of just figure out what was going on in these reports, like what are the inconsistencies and the problems that the reports might have from a user's perspective. Then I had to talk to customers, right? So part of the problem that the SOC, when they were making these reports, is they never asked customers what they even needed in the reports. That's a real user-centered approach, isn't it? So no, not so cool. So they never even asked them what they needed in the reports. And after talking to customers, I found out not very much was very useful in these reports, to be honest. And so then, remember the ask is, I need to figure out a way to automate these reports. So I had to figure out how these reports were even built. So I conducted a contextual inquiry, that's sometimes called side-by-sides, where I would sit with the person who built the report, and he showed me how he did it. And after that, I kind of mapped out the steps and the systems involved of building the report, and then took that a little deeper and made a service design blueprint out of it. And then I knew with all these different methods of research, this kind of mixed methods approach, I knew that I would find gaps and opportunities that could lead to my recommendations. So this was my overall research plan. And just to kind of recap, like summarize this, that in order to satisfy that customer need, like a service design we're talking about, we wanted to improve the employees building this report, right, and their experience building it. So first, heuristic evaluation, I had to know what was going on in this report. Like, what is this? 2, contextual inquiry, how is it built? I can't automate something if I don't even know how it's built in the first place. And then 3, talking to our users, the consumers of these reports, to find out how we can meet their needs and provide content that's valuable to them. And then hopefully, doing these different methods might lead to some happy customers who get the reports. So, like I said, heuristic evaluation. I needed to figure out what was going on in these reports, and here's an example. So it's just I didn't do a full heuristic evaluation like with Nielsen's Norman's 10. I just wanted like to see the status quo and to kind of see what is going on. Like I said, visual inconsistencies. You'll see that in a bit. And surface some problems and opportunities just based on just reviewing the report itself. And, you know, I'm going to be honest, the people who put these reports together are pretty technical. They're subject matter experts. So they're not the most empathetic designers, right? They know this stuff way too well. And so I had to see if someone dumb like me could understand what was going on in these reports. And guess what? I could not. So that was a good way to kind of like, what is going on here? So I want to talk about some examples of the just looking at the report, here's what's going in. So let's start with this one with the black and the red, the top alert categories. Well, this 3D chart's super fancy, huh? Well, they thought so. But the value is from 0, the first line is 30,000. Doesn't really matter even what that reference is, but they're so far, the boxes are so far from that scale, you can't even see it. It's pointless to have a 3D chart. And think about it, it's not here in this example, but what if those black bars were higher than the red bars? You're not going to be able to see them because it's tucked in the back. So this chart, woo, good times. The gray and white table. So what this showed were everybody's devices, the devices in that company's environment. Had these really cryptic names that you'd have to know what they were, and most people didn't know. And they just reported the status quo. They're like, yep, it's on. That's what this chart's telling them. These devices are on. And they're like, so what? What I want to know is if there's a problem. And if there's a problem, what do I do about that problem? And this chart is not providing data that would help that. And then finally, this blue one at the bottom right, this is my favorite. The y-axis going up and down goes from 0 to 3. And this is tickets, how many tickets, right? This whole chart's talking about how long a ticket remains open, like it's not resolved, it's time. So it goes from 0 to 0.5 to 1 to 1.5. Well, I can assure you, there's no such thing as a half of a ticket. You either have a ticket or you don't. I don't know why they broke this into halves. Makes no sense. You either have a ticket or you don't. And then the law on the bottom is the time it's open in seconds. Seconds. I don't know if you can see it, but the highest number is 28,619. That's almost 8 hours. Who in the hell wants to translate from seconds into something that's meaningful? No one. So as you can see, a little weird. There's definitely some opportunity to improve the charts here, as well as getting some visual consistency. So next step for me was to talk to customers. What a novel idea, huh? Well, it was to them. So I interviewed several customers, and when I asked them, hey, do these reports provide what you need? Nope. Was pretty much the answer. Not really. So they want to be able to take actionable items back to their boss if there's a problem, right? One person said, if we are in trouble, I don't want to know that there is a problem. I want to know what to do about it. Don't just tell me there's a problem. That's not very useful. So they also wanted these reports to kind of reflect industry trends or concerns. Like, what's happening out in the world right now? Are there things that they should be aware of that are like current threats, like a current hot virus that's going around? Like, they didn't reflect what's going on. And some things are industry specific. And they wanted that kind of more personalized information, right? Like, make it relative to the industry that I work in. And like I said, they just had no context or interpretation. So when I say that they wanted it personalized, there were a lot of articles in it that had zero information that was relevant to what they were. Just generic news articles they pulled off the web and stuck in there as gravy, I guess. I don't know. They're like, these are useless. I don't care. So again, they just wanted these reports to have useful information for them to take it back to their boss and say, we know what's going on in our environment, and here's what we're going to do about it. And these reports just didn't provide that. So the next thing I did was to conduct that contextual inquiry. And so I sat with the person who made most of the reports. His nickname was Bro Sales, so that's what I'm going to call him, because that's what we called him, Bro Sales. And he was the one that I sat with, and he walked me through every step that he did, and I can ask questions along the way. And it was great because I could see what he was doing, and a lot of times he didn't even realize he was doing some of the things he was doing. And so I could sit there and kind of ask questions. What's going on? And what I really love about this method is when you do sit side by side and you actually observe them in real time, like I said, you see them do things that they don't even realize that they do. And they're never going to tell you that they do this because their muscle memory just kicks in and they just get this stuff done and they don't even really are conscious of some of the steps, right? So you can notice some of the hacks and little workarounds that they have that they wouldn't think about telling you about. And you can ask them questions all along the way, like, why are you doing that? How is that helpful? What information are you gathering there? And a lot of times, like, keep in mind, remember, these are really technical people, so they're not even thinking about why you would even want to know that. So you can ask those questions, and that's what I love about doing the contextual inquiry. And you can, understand what the systems were used, where they're doing things manually, and when somebody does something manually, that brings in room for error, and believe me, I saw that. I saw him mistyping in numbers and whatnot. I was like, whoa, okay, this is a good time. So it really, by sitting with him and conducting contextual inquiry, it really helped me to understand just how this report was built. Like I said, I can't recommend improvements if I don't even know what's going on. Well, the main thing I learned is there's a ton of systems that he touches to build this report, copying and pasting from websites and other enterprise software, calculations and scripts and all kinds of stuff. He was doing all kinds of stuff to put the report together. And when we sat through this, he's like, I didn't even realize I did so many things. These are all the different things that he had to use to build one report. So you can see why it could take 2 hours. And after seeing all these systems involved and all the steps, it's going to be pretty much impossible to automate building this report. But fine. After I observed and got the gist of what was going on, I went back to my desk and kind of did a real rough journey map. Now, I had like a whiteboard like that big, not very big. So I just wanted the high level, here's what the step was and the system that was involved. And so this little whiteboard is not going to be enough for me to do a full-on service design blueprint. So but it was a good rough draft, right? It was a good place to start and get it out of my head and kind of reference this a lot as I built my service design blueprint. And so this is, like I said, that little whiteboard is not going to be big enough. So I went big. And when I say big, it wrapped around 5 cubicles in the office, no joke. So I took the flip charts, the big Post-it flip charts, stuck them around the cubicles, and put Post-it notes on that. I put screenshots on that, and put all the steps. And this was great because it gave some visibility into what was going on. And now people at the company could see what that UX person had been up to. Like, what's going on? What is this? These people had never seen anything like this. Like, oh my God, flip charts, what's that? So putting it out like this, I bring bro sales up, and we go through the steps to make sure it's accurate. Did I forget anything? Yes. But moving sticky notes around is pretty easy to kind of, adjust. And I had a couple that were flipped, and I had missed a couple steps, But it was great because now it surfaced all the systems that were involved and all the jumps and all the places that he was pulling from to build this report. And this was also starting to surface these areas of opportunity and improvements that could be coming out of really examining this process. And it created some visual interest. People were like, whoa, what is this? Like I said, I was the only UX person in this company, the first one they ever hired, and they were like, I don't even know what these big pieces of paper are. What's going on? So it was pretty funny to see people like, hey, what's happening over there? So remember that service design blueprint I showed you earlier? Well, understanding this a little bit more, the yellow are the steps in a person's journey. And then the swim lanes going across are how you examine those steps a little bit deeper. So the red ones are the touch points, and that's the touch point that the customer has with your company. So it could be a website, it could be a checkout at a store, it could be a telephone call. And the blue are the staff actions. These are the places where the user interacts directly with a person that works for your company. So, like I said, if they're calling in on phone, that employee, that's the discussion they're having. That's the staff action. And then there's this little gray thing that's below the line of visibility. And that's where the customer doesn't see what's happening in your company anymore. And below that, you have backstage staff. That's the purple. And those would be say for Amazon, the person who's packaging your thing, the delivery person, those are the backstage staff actions. And then finally, the bottom is the green is the support. So this would be all the technology that is happening behind the scenes at each one of those customer steps. So for this project, I took a little bit of a different approach. And I think the beauty of this framework is that it's flexible. And you can examine what you need to and determine those swim lanes to help you examine what you need to help the company discover opportunities and what problems you're trying to solve. So I want to kind of walk through a non-enterprise example and using this service design blueprint model. And let's say we're designing a theme park. How cool would that be, huh? If we were doing that, that'd be loads of fun. So we're designing a theme park, And we're going to modify the service design blueprint, and we're going to go through this theme park experience using a persona. So let's talk about this persona. The persona is an elderly person who has mobility issues. So some of their needs are, maybe they need to take frequent breaks. Maybe they need accommodations for wheelchairs, or maybe they have some special dietary needs. And so we're going to focus on sci-fi land, and I have modified this service design blueprint with other swim lane topics that are important to the problem we're trying to solve. So the gold at the top are an attraction in the theme park. We have gift shops and rides and restaurants and a restroom and things like that. The red are the services that are provided at that attraction. The blue are the interactions with an employee, and the purple are the pro or the good things that are happening at that touch point. So what's going well? The green are the bad things, maybe that areas of improvement at that touch point. And then pink would be, for me, it's how the team, it's a how might we? How might we improve this touch point for this customer? So normally you would do this for all the attractions, but for the sake of time, we're only going to focus on one. And we're going to focus on the Spaceman Burger Stand, and that is a restaurant. And so that's the touch point. And again, our persona is an elderly person with mobility issues. So think about the services that could be provided at this restaurant. Well, maybe you need to offer low glycemic foods because they have special dietary needs. Maybe you need large print menus because they left their glasses at home or they don't have a smartphone. So you provide printed menus that have large text. Some opportunities for the employees who work there. Maybe somebody who knows CPR so that in case somebody has a heart attack, they're there to help them out. Or somebody who has good physical strength in case somebody falls and they need to be picked up. So those are some opportunities for staff at an attraction like that. And then the good things that could be offered. Well, it could be air conditioned. A lot of times people are going to theme parks in the summer and it's hot. So this could be a place where there's air conditioning, aircon, and you could have a place for them to rest and sit. Like I said, this person may have mobility issues and need to rest. And also provide free water. Nothing worse than you have to take some medication in the middle of the day and you have to pay €4 for a bottle of water, right? So those are some of the good things that this attraction could offer. Let's talk about some of the things that could be a problem, some of the bad, negative things. Well, having tall bar seats, the big seats that you sit high, well, somebody with mobility issues is going to have a real struggle getting up into a seat like that. Also, having tables and chairs really close together could be difficult to push a wheelchair through. So that could be a problem. And so now that we've looked at this touch point, we could then, as a team, brainstorm how might we come up with opportunities to improve this experience. So there's something I want to emphasize, and I've kind of hinted at it, but I really want to emphasize that when it comes to a service design blueprint, it's okay to modify the swim lanes to focus on what you need to focus on. Like for that example, I didn't need to focus on the backstage staff and the systems involved because we were focusing on the customer. And so I changed the swim lanes to focus on the things that we wanted to discuss as a team and surface those opportunities. So I say that to modify a service design blueprint because that is exactly what I did when I was working on the blueprint for the enterprise company. So let me talk about what these colors are, what they represent. It's a little muddy, but the top is yellow, and that was the action. That was the step that Bro Sales took to build the report. The orange is my additional observation. So it wasn't quite the step, but it was a little more like he used a cheat sheet there, And I just wanted to capture that a little bit differently. The pink, I call these my editorial comments. These are the things that I started to capture Like, they're not part of the step, but I'm seeing them, and these are the opportunities, these are the problems. Like, he made an error here, or woo, we had to jump through a lot of steps, and how we might improve that. So the pinks, I'm starting to capture some of my recommendations. We also took screen grabs of everything, so I knew what the screen looked like at every step. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's little tabs on them that indicated the system that they were in. So kind of a lot going on here. And like I said, once I got it all mapped out, wrapping around those 5 cubicles, it was time to review with the team. So like I said, I talked to bro sales first, make sure all the steps were accurate, and it really mapped out how many times he was jumping around and all the different systems he was using. And I also started to have some conversations with the developers, because the developers were the ones that were going to automate this report, right, or make these improvements. And they have no idea how this report's built. So we started to, get it together and start having some conversations. This is what's happening here. Here's the system they're in, and bro sales is kind of guiding them too. But mapping it all out was a great way to have some conversations, and level set and understand how this report is being built. And like I said, spoiler, after seeing this, this was the first time managers had any visibility into what was going on to build this report. They had no clue, obviously, because if they'd known that it was all these steps and all this crap, they wouldn't have been like, oh, just flip a switch and automate it. Nope, not going to happen. And this proved that. So, okay, maybe the project failed in that respect, but it did surface a lot of opportunities to where we can streamline and be a bit more efficient in building this report in the first place. Strictly automate it? No, not so much, but still some areas to fix this up. So once we had it all mapped out and kind of understood, then I put it in a spreadsheet. And I know what you're thinking, my designer friends here. Oh, you could have made it so cool and interactive and really flashy. Yeah, I could have done that. But I needed to meet my users, which was devs and technologists, where they are. And where they are is spreadsheets. So this was really accessible for them. This is a format that they were comfortable in. So I translated it to a Google spreadsheet, and that way that they could just open it on their computer. And the colors here kind of correspond to the colors that were on the Post-it notes, so it's all kind of the same thing. And it was a little heartbreaking to take down that paper version around all the cubicles, my work of art. But the good side is, now everybody could open it on their own computer and leave me the hell alone and not ask me questions every 5 minutes. So it worked out. Now everybody could go in and review this and work at their own pace and work at their own time. So this was the final deliverable for this project. This was where we all made decisions on what we were going to improve and how we were going to streamline this. So I want to revisit my plan of attack, or my research plan, and talk about how conducting these different research efforts really did inform that service design blueprint. I did a heuristic evaluation where I looked at the report, saw what was going on in it, looked at the inconsistencies in the design, and those funky charts and all that fun stuff. Most importantly, in my opinion, is I talked to our users and got their perspective on what should be in these reports. Really important. And then, obviously, sitting with bro sales and getting that, observing how that report was built and getting that process, understanding it step by step, what it really took to build this thing out. And little whiteboard, rough journey map, and then translating that into a service design blueprint, which ultimately led to recommendations and surfacing those opportunities for improvement. Now, for me, the beauty of a service design blueprint is that you get a holistic view, and it really does surface those gaps and opportunities that you take for granted if you didn't have something like this. And it showed the challenges of automation for building this report. It just wasn't going to be that simple. And it also included a cross-functional team for the first time. So this is kind of funny. The SOC analysts, they were kind of developers too. My developers were upstairs and they were downstairs. And the SOC, you needed a special badge to go in, and my developers did not have access to those people. They were not even allowed in the room. I was like, oh, hell no. No. This is not going to work. So I finally got the two teams to start working together and talking together because we needed both technical perspectives in order to build this, whatever improvements we were going to make. So it was so surreal that all these years, these two teams working on the same product didn't even have access to each other. And it wasn't that big of a company. So it was very, very odd. And so I think that in the end, the biggest win for me was, again, that transparency. Transparency in that a service design blueprint will bring forward by mapping out all the steps and the pieces, unlike a lot of other methods could do. So I think the question could be, is this something that you could do? And I'm thinking, hell yes. It's very insightful to go across the steps of a customer's journey and do a deep dive examination into each one of those. And you can do it solo, by yourself like I did, because I was the only UX person there. But you could do this as a team effort. And I actually think that would be better, because you could bring in developers, product managers or product owners, customers, and get that multiple perspective, which would make your service design blueprint even more robust. So you can do it by yourself, or you can do it as a team. You do not need any special tools. Like I had, you saw it was stickies, paper, markers. You could use Figma. You could use whatever, spreadsheet. You could use a digital whiteboard. I did not have a digital whiteboard, but let me tell you, that would have been really handy to have when I had this, doing this. But you don't have to have any special tools. It can be done in whatever tool you're most comfortable using. You also don't need to have tech expertise. And what I mean by tech expertise, making words up as I go, is that you don't need to have all this deep knowledge of the systems involved. Believe me, I didn't have a clue what Bro Sales was doing, but he told me enough to know what the system did and why he was using it, and that's all I needed. I don't need to be an expert on all the systems. Just what are you using, what are you pulling out of there, and why? That's all you need. So you don't need to be super technical in order to complete a service design blueprint. And it was good to also balance the customer perspective for the first time, as well as talking to the security operations center experts. Because there were things that are like, yeah, the customers do need to know this. They don't know they need to know this, but this is why we include this. It's like, okay, well, we should tell them why this information is very valuable to them. So it was also really nice to get both perspectives. And then finally, like I said, I was able to pull the recommendations as I was going and learning to how we can improve this report building process and this whole system. Whew, okay, I know that was a lot, big journey there, but hopefully you can see the value of using these different research methods and how those doing it a mixed method approach, how that can be used for something maybe you're thinking about working on. And my major takeaway for you all today is it's okay to modify a service design blueprint. You don't have to use adaptive paths, perfect, blueprint. You modify it to what you need to learn. Because it's like with all of UX, it depends, right? We're a very flexible industry. We adapt things to how we need to work for us, and that's my big takeaway for you, is hopefully that you can think about using this system or this process for maybe something that you're working on. And that's all I got.
Thank you very much, Jen. I think we have time for a few questions. So let's start with the most upvoted ones. Can you share your favorite accessibility guidelines and resources when you share the talks with the organizers? This is a great topic and so important.
Sure. I don't have any specific accessibility guidelines related to this per se, but yeah, happy to share my resources for sure.
Great. Thank you. They're going to be looking for it in the emails, I guess. How to progress as a UX professional in case you should design tools that look like Excel spreadsheets in your company?
Sorry, say that again?
How to progress as a UX professional in case you should design tools that look like Excel spreadsheets in your company?
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love spreadsheets, right? They are so pretty. But form follows function, my friends, right? Like, sometimes you just have to meet people with where they are. If I had done some fancy, interactive, they would have been like, whoa, no. And it was just so big that it really wasn't a way to make that other than like a spreadsheet, because you saw 5 cubicles, lots of steps, right? So, I mean, I'm not a fan of spreadsheets either, but I use them all the time. I take my notes for my interviews in a spreadsheet. I can't believe I'm in a spreadsheet every time I open it up, but it's functional for me and it works. And so, like I said, use the tools that work best for you. And if you have a deep hate against spreadsheets, I get it, but sometimes they just work.
Who doesn't hate Excel? But yeah. How can you prioritize which customer employee journey you should start with?
Yeah, so we went with, I talked to several different, we didn't have a ton of customers, it was a small company. So I kind of went with who had, some got them quarterly and some got them monthly. So I talked to both sets there. Customers that we'd had long-term versus some who were new, and large and small companies. So I was trying to get a different segment, different perspectives from the different kind of companies that we serviced.
Thank you. I think we have time for the last one. I often hear design versus accessibility. Where did that drop? How do you not sacrifice one for the other? Accessibility for design.
Ooh.
Versus, I mean.
Well, I mean, you design for accessibility, you design for everyone, right? Like, it's that inclusive mindset. You know the story of the OXO can opener that was designed for somebody who had arthritis, and that's like everybody's preferred kind of can opener now. So I hope you don't have to, but I mean the reality is sometimes you do. But my thought is I hope you don't have to.
That is how it is. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'd like to give this as a
thank you.
token of appreciation from the organizers. Thank you very much for the talk again.
Thank you.